Now, when I read the reading that Trevor's just read about feeding the hungry, looking after the sick, that one, I immediately thought, I know a story that just tells that story, really. It's actually a children's story, and it's actually based at Christmas time, but it's not about the Christmas story at all. It's about somebody called Papa Panov, and it's a lovely story. Anyway, that's what I thought I'd share with you. It was Christmas Eve. The lights danced merrily on the streets, and families laughed and sang and unwrapped their presents. But Papa Panov, the village shoemaker, sat in his home alone. His wife was dead. His children had grown up and moved away. And so he sat by himself, an old Bible in his lap, and looked for company in the story of the first Christmas. There was Mary and Joseph, tired and hungry with nowhere to stay. I would have given them room, Papa Panov thought. There is plenty of space in this old house of mine. And there were shepherds too, and the angels and 3 kings from the east bearing gifts. And there's Papa Panov there, reading his Bible and sitting by the fire. Can you see him? Can you? There he is. There. There. Oh, yeah. Now, what would I have brought to the baby Jesus? Papa Panov wondered. And his thoughts flew to a little box he had on the highest shelf in his shoemaker's shop. And in the box, there were tiny, tiny little shoes, sewn once upon a time by his own nimble fingers now grown gnarled and stiff. Well, that's what I would have brought him, Papa Panov smiled, my very best work. And then his head dropped slowly to one side and his glasses fell crooked across his nose. And Papa Panov fell fast asleep. All Christmas Eve he slept. And while he slept, he dreamed. He dreamed of his wife and of his children and the happy Christmases they had shared. He saw their faces just as he remembered them, laughing and singing and shining with joy. And just as the aching sadness of that dream became too much for him to bear, Papa Panov saw another face, a kind and gentle face. I am Jesus, said the face. I have seen your loneliness and your sorrow, and so this Christmas Day, I shall visit you. Watch for me, Papa Panov. The old man woke with a start. The morning sun was shining in his eyes, and it was Christmas Day. And if the dream was true, then Jesus was going to come and visit him. Well, Papa Panov quickly scurried around and tidied his house. He put on a pot of fresh coffee, and then every few minutes, he peeped out of his window. And that's when he saw the man. Well, it could have been Jesus, walking slowly down the street, holding a shepherd's staff. But as the man got closer, Papa Panov recognized him. It was Sergei, the village street sweeper, faithfully doing his job, even on Christmas Day. Papa Panov opened his door and called to the man, "Ooh, you look cold, my friend, and it must be lonely out there on Christmas morning. Come in and join me for a cup of coffee." The street sweeper hurried into Papa Panov's house and he dusted the snow from his shoulders and he rubbed his freezing hands together. And then Papa Panov handed him the hot mug. He just held it for a while and let the steam rise like a warm cloud over his cold face. Sergei drank his coffee slowly, and though Papa Panov chatted politely with him and even told him about the dream, the shoemaker still kept an eye on the street outside. "Well, I hope your dreams come true," said the street sweeper at last, "but I have to get back to work. Thank you for your coffee and your kindness." And with a grateful Merry Christmas, he picked up his broom and went back to sweep the street. And there he is, there's Sergei, going with his brush and to go and do some more sweeping out in the street. And there's Papa Panov, pleased that he's made someone feel a bit warmer and welcome. Well, 1 hour passed, and then 2, and slowly the street became busy. Papa Panov put on a pot of cabbage soup and watched his neighbours wander off to visit their relatives. But still there was no sign of Jesus. There was a girl, however, a girl he didn't recognise. She walked slowly along the street, a bundle in her arms, and because her clothes were torn and ragged, she shivered with each step. Papa Panov opened the door again, and he looked up and down the street, and when he was sure that Jesus was not there, he called to the girl, "Come here, come in from the cold." Papa Panov poured out another cup of coffee and gave the girl a seat close to the stove. He offered to take her bundle, but the girl clutched it tightly to her chest. And that's when the bundle began to cry. "Oh, my baby's hungry," the girl whispered. So Papa Panov warmed some milk. There's the girl and Papa Panov and the coffee and the baby. See? And as the girl fed the baby and slowly unwrapped the thin blankets, Papa noticed that the child had no shoes. And his thoughts flew straight away to that little box again, the one perched on the top of his highest shelf. But those shoes were for Jesus, he argued silently with himself. The baby cried again, and another look at those frozen little toes settled the argument once and for all. And Papa Panov reached up and took the box down from the shelf and put the little shoes before the girl. There's the little shoes. Sorry, I didn't have any to bring with me. But those shoes were for Jesus, said the girl. "I can't take those. They are far too fine for someone like me." "For the child's sake, then," pleaded Papa Panov, "for Christmas." When the girl had gone, Papa Panov looked out of the window again, and the sun was low in the sky now, and there was still no sign of Jesus. But there were plenty of beggars wandering the streets in search of a little Christmas cheer. So Papa Panov opened his door to them, and he had a pot of cabbage soup for them all, and they slurped it down gratefully. It was dark by the time the last beggar left, and Papa Panov was tired. So he slumped down in his chair again, more sad and lonely than he had been the night before. "Must have been a dream," he sighed, "only a dream." And at that moment, Papa Panov knew that he was not alone. He looked up, and there was that face again. It was Jesus standing in the doorway. "When I was hungry," Jesus said, "you fed me. When I was cold, you comforted me. And when I was naked, you gave me something to wear. But when, asked Papa Panov, when did I do these things for you? When you warmed the street sweeper and fed the beggars and gave your finest shoes to a poor, shivering child. That's when Jesus smiled. Merry Christmas, Papa Panov, he said at last. And then he disappeared into the night, like a vision, like a dream. See how the story was very much like our Bible reading. I thought we can learn as much from that children's story as we can from it.